everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I talk about writing, books, philosophy, and pretty much whatever I want. My name is Kate. Thank you so much for being here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of 2024. Honestly, 2024 was a really great reading year. I've been hearing from a lot of other booktubers that I've been watching that it's been like a flop year for so many booktubers, but for me, it was probably the best reading year I've ever had because I discovered so many new favorites. I read 75 books total, and I will be doing a stat video to go over all the minutiae of everything that I read, so be sure to look out for that video. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the 9 books with the 2 honorable mentions. Starting with the number 1 honorable mention, which is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This was a really surprising book for me. On my Goodreads, I have a bookshelf that is called Books That Surprised Me, and I think this one is on it because I had read an Alex E. Harrow book before this one, and it wasn't one of my favorites, but this one I had to pick it up because it seemed stylistically to be a different kind of vibe from what Alex E. Harrow had written before. I could be wrong about that, but this one is much more gothic horror, gothic romance. It's pretty short too, so it's, a pretty quick read as far as I'm concerned. I read this in the beginning of 2024, so it's hard for me to summarize it because it's been a long time. But basically we follow our main character, Opal. She lives in this small town in Kentucky, and there's this house that has been drawing her to it. She's fascinated by it for a really long time. And this house has sort of a sordid history. There used to be an author that lived there who wrote about these stories, I think called the Underland. She kind of had a bad reputation, and so there's lots of rumors about this house, and she keeps wanting to go to it, but she doesn't know why. And she and the main man who now lives in the house, who has taken over Starling House, together they uncover the secrets of the Underland and this house in general, and it's really good. The second honorable mention on my list is not a book that I own physically. It is called The Writer's Retreat by Julia Bartz. This book, I feel like, is kind of polarizing on BookTube and on Goodreads because it has kind of a lower average rating. I absolutely loved this. I thought the vibes were immaculate. It takes place in this rich writer's house in upstate New York, I think. It's this opulent mansion, and she invites all these writers to do a writing retreat. They're all to write a book while they're there, and whoever wins, she will endorse the book and help produce it or something like that. It's pretty chaotic from there. This is a thriller, so obviously shit hits the fan, especially in the last quarter of the book. Like, it got really insane. I loved this book. I thought that it was so well written. I loved that the author, Julia Bartz, has a degree in psychology. I think she's actually a doctor of psychology, if I'm remembering correctly. So you could really tell that she knew how to write about the psychological turmoil that her characters are going through, and I really enjoyed that a lot. This has amazing wintry vibes. I gave it 5 stars. Okay, now we're moving into my top 9 books of the year, and we are starting with The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This again was probably one of my most surprising books of 2024. I had heard that so many people did not like this because they thought that the main character, what's his name again? I think it's Holden. Yeah, it's Holden. A lot of people don't like him. They think he's too vulgar, complains a lot, has a bad attitude, like all of these things. And apparently this book inspired various murderers in history. I don't know. I don't think that's a legitimate criticism of the book. I mean, anyway, we don't need to go through that rabbit hole today. I read this in a day. My heart broke for Holden. Basically, this is about a young boy who's navigating what it's like to go from adolescence towards adulthood, and the traumas that he's gone through and how that has informed his mental state, and how he navigates the world as an adolescent boy, and he's just having a really hard time connecting with people. And I think J.D. Salinger is an incredible writer. I mean, this is a classic, obviously. So many people know about this book. And the cover is absolutely iconic. I rated this 4 stars, I think, because I couldn't quite relate entirely to the main character because I am not a young adolescent boy, but really, really, really loved this a lot. Next is another book that I do not currently own. It's called Capturing the Devil by Carrie Maniscalco, and I was so shocked at how much I ended up loving this series. There's 4 books. Capturing the Devil is book 4, and it follows Audrey Rose Wadsworth and Thomas Blacknell, I think is his last name, I can't remember. But they are a pair in 1800s London, and they like go all around the world in the other books, but they do autopsies on people who've been murdered, and it follows cases like Jack the Ripper and others, but I don't want to spoil anything. It's really quite gory. It's young adult, which is odd to me that like that amount of gore was fine, but anything, you know, like intimate between our 2 main characters, it was like not as much as the gore, but I digress. The 4th book, they end up in Chicago, and there's a well-known case that happened there in the 1800s. It's about how they reconcile the events of book 1 with book 4, and I just thought the whole series was weaved together so well. I wouldn't say it's a serious read for literary merit or whatever. It's just a really well-crafted story that was really fun, and I'm surprised at how much I loved it, and I wish I had more in the series, or maybe one day I'll do a reread. I kind of want to buy the series too. There's like the special edition that I saw that has sprayed edges that I might get for myself. Next we have Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I read this, I think it was in November. I had seen this one all over BookTube. I'd seen this all over Barnes & Noble, Instagram, and so I decided, okay, I'll pick it up, and I really loved the cover of this. This is essentially about 2 characters, Sam Mazur and Sadie Green. When Sam was a little boy, he went through a horrific accident, so he ended up having problems with his foot that lasted him throughout his entire life. Sadie happened to be in the hospital at the same time because her sister was sick. She got him to come out of his shell. She did that by playing video games with him. This basically sets up this lifelong, beautiful friendship that they have over the course of their lifetime, and how they go on to meet again at these Ivy League schools, and they start designing games together. But yeah, there's a scene towards the 3/4 mark in this book that will live in my head rent-free forever, because it's heartbreaking. If you know, you know. A lot of people have thought that maybe this was a little overwritten, or people were saying like pretentious, takes itself too seriously. I didn't find it to be that way, because the central theme of this book is the nature of reality and soulmates and choosing each other in every reality. Like there's this line that Sam talks about how he would choose Sadie in every universe, and so it kind of like talks a little bit about parallel universes in a weird roundabout kind of way, but that's why I really love this, because of the beauty of their connection and their friendship. I think that this is definitely worth the hype. Next, we're moving on to an absolute brick of a book, and that is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 3 in the Stormlight Archives series. I did tab this one as well. This is the longest book that I read in 2024, coming in at just over 1,200 pages. I do not know how to talk about this book without spoiling things. This is basically a world called Roshar. There are like 3 main POVs. There's Shallan, Dalinar, and Kaladin. It's about how these 3 people, they come from different walks of life, how they interact with each other and influence the fate of Roshar, because there's obviously a very detailed magic system in this, and there are these things called Everstorms, I think, and they periodically swipe across parts of Roshar. There are these monsters that they're fighting. Like, it's just really hard to explain, but trust me, Brandon Sanderson is widely considered to be one of the best living authors, especially of sci-fi and fantasy. This one is my favorite. I love Dalinar Kholin. He is the main POV in this book. I have a feeling that was a really bad summation, but like, again, it's book 3. I don't know how else to describe it. I have book 4 sitting over there right now, which is like another 1,300 page book. I will be getting to it in 2025. I'm still not used to saying 2025. Definitely recommend this one as well. Obviously I recommend all the books in this video. I don't even know why I bother to say that. Next is a book that I did have a copy of, but I lent it to a friend, and that is The Ministry of Time by Callie-Ann Bradley. This book is one of those books that like I really think it was made for me. Okay, everything keeps overheating, my camera and my laptop. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but if you can, I'm so sorry. If you've been on my channel for a while, then you know that one of my favorite stories is The Terror by Dan Simmons. It chronicles the real life events of the doomed Franklin expedition in 1848, I think, but it takes like a supernatural twist on it. The Ministry of Time takes one of these historical figures, Commander Gore, who was on the Franklin expedition. He is the main love interest. We never know the name of the main protagonist in this book, but it's essentially about this ministry that takes figures in history and brings them forward to our current timeline right as they're about to die, to see how being in the modern day will affect them or not. They get them acclimated to living in modern times. So it's sort of like a workplace comedy slash drama slash romance slash, it's like a lot of genres, sort of thriller too. This was a debut novel by Callie-Ann Bradley, and I just absolutely loved it. And it's just like a really unique book. I can't say I've read a book like it in recent years. We're getting into top 5 now, so this was definitely one of my top 5 favorite books of the year. Next we have a little book that I'm sure nobody has heard of called A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. Yes, okay, I know, I'm so sorry. I'm on the hype bus, the hype train with this series. To be fair, I was not on the hype boat until I read this book. This is book 3 in the ACOTAR series. We're following Feyre Archeron. She, in the first book, gets abducted by this creature who turns out to be Tamlin, who is the Lord of the Spring Court. And he lives in the fairy lands. She is immortal, and it's all about how she becomes acclimated to this world, shall we say. I mean, most people already know the plot of this series, so I will stop there with that. There's no real way for me to talk about this book that doesn't involve spoilers, so I won't. But basically the reason why I loved this book was because of the found family aspects in it, and it really made me want to live in Velaris, which is the Night Court, and be immortal and hot forever. This one was really well written compared to the other books. I don't think that Sarah J Maas is like as skilled in certain areas as she is in others, like creating a solid magic system or world building. I think maybe she struggles a little bit, but this one I thought that she weaved together everything really nicely, and I cried a lot, especially at the end of this book. If you know, you know. But she does a really good job of creating characters that you just want to know and be around. She knows how to create a world you want to go live in, and it's a really fun time. It's kind of like reality TV, you know? You just like, you can't get enough of it, I guess. But really it was the found family aspect in this that made me fall in love with this book in particular. I wouldn't say I'm in love with the rest of the series. I did also really love A Court of Frost and Starlight, and I liked A Court of Silver Flames. I liked the first one. The second one I want to reread because I actually really didn't like A Court of Mist and Fury, which I know is like an unpopular opinion. I might reread that one in 2025. Next, we are once again talking about Dracula in Love by Karen Essex. I'll keep this short because I've mentioned this book so many times on my channel. This is essentially a retelling of Dracula told from Mina Harker's perspective, and how she's actually like this powerful being, and she and Dracula have been connected for centuries or whatever. There's a lot of spice in this. It's sort of darker the way that it's written, but I think it's actually very well written in general, and I absolutely fell in love with this because it was exactly what I wanted in a Dracula retelling vampire kind of story. But then the last 10% went to shit, and I wanted to throw this across the room. But it is still one of my top favorite books of 2024, and I really want to reread it. This was written in 2010, I think, and the cover is really like, I want to like design my own dust jacket for this, because this is not giving, you know what I mean? I love the lore behind this book because I just randomly found this at my library and I was like, what is this? Okay, I guess I'll pick it up. And I remember so distinctly reading this and just like my mind was blown. I was like, wow, I can't believe this book exists. I'm so happy it exists. and then yeah, that ending, but it's still my third favorite book of 2024. Now that we're going into 2025, don't worry, I will not be mentioning this nearly so often. Okay, my second favorite book of 2024. It's a little book called Under the Same Sky by Kate Hill, yours truly. Shameless plug, I know, but I mean, I wrote the thing, you know, and I am very proud of it and I love it so much. The support for my book has been amazing over the entire year, so of course I had to mention it. This is about Saren, who's just gone through a bad breakup, and her grandfather has died. She has inherited a bit of land in this rural town. She moves there. It's all about finding everything she's ever wanted in an unlikely place and resilience, overcoming the things that have really torn us down in our lives. This is more of a feel-good, cozy sort of read. There are dramatic bits in it. I had the time of my life writing this. I still can't believe that I wrote it. The reviews on it so far have been really encouraging and nice, and people seem to really enjoy it. Very proud of this, and I will of course have links to check it out in the description down below. Obviously, one of my favorite books of 2024. Okay, if you've been watching my book content at all, then you know what's coming. You know what my favorite book was of 2024. Say it with me. The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This may be my favorite book of all time. It's kind of tied with Dracula by Bram Stoker and Hester by Laura Lico Albanese, and maybe even Phantom of the Opera. This is book 2 in the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series. It could be technically a standalone. It's not, but it is book 2. This follows David Martin. He's a writer. This is early 1900s. It's about his rise to being a prolific author through the help of this angelic being that's also kind of scary. Like the things that this angel does to quote unquote help him are quite extreme, but he's clearly there to help David. It has a lot of themes that were present in Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. It's similar. There's like gothic undertones to it. There's some romance, psychological thriller. It's just everything that I would want in a book. It's beautifully told. There's like suggestions that David is a vampire in this. Like, I'm probably interpreting that wrong, but I'm choosing to because it just makes me love it even more. There's a lot of magical realism in this, so not everything is super tied together by the end. Carlos Ruiz Zafón leaves it up to you to kind of piece it together and come up with your own opinion on it. This was the year of this series. I still have to read book 4. I did start it in 2024, but I'm gonna finish it in 2025. I can't recommend this book enough. Obviously, you should probably read Shadow of the Wind first, which is one of the most famous books out there, and then read this one. And please tell me what you think, because I don't know anybody who has read this. It's the lowest rated on Goodreads. It's still like an average of 4 stars, so you know, it's not that low. When anybody talks about this series, this one's never anybody's favorite, but it's my favorite, and I just love it so much. So yeah, favorite book of 2024, right here. So there you have it. Those are my 9 favorite books of 2024 and my 2 honorable mentions. It was such a good reading year. I read so many amazing books. Like I said, I will be doing a stats video in the near future, so be looking out for that. Let me know down below, what were your favorite books of the year? I would love to know. I'm constantly adding to read books to my Goodreads, which I am also officially a Goodreads author. If you'd like to check that out, I'll have the link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't wait to see you in the next one, and happy 2025. I will see you in the next one. Bye.